Hey guys, welcome to Terrier Talk, where we talk about living a happier life with our pet terriers, where they are more fulfilled and we are less stressed. So today I wanted to chat a little bit about, is it your fault that your terrier has become reactive? Okay, I'm in a lot of the terrier kind of like Facebook groups and those kind of places, and one of the biggest things that people ask for advice on is their terrier barking at other dogs, other people, and even sometimes fast moving objects, bikes and scooters and kids and that kind of thing. Um, for the most part, with our terriers, it's kind of like excited barking because they love movement and they love stuff and they just get themselves so excited about things, and it's just overexcitement. And because they're contained on a lead, and they're terriers at the end of the day, that excitement then starts to turn into barking, lunging, and all those kind of unwanted behaviors that are not only stressful for the dog but also really stressful for us. It becomes difficult to take them places. It becomes unenjoyable to take them places. And one of the comments that often comes, when people put up a post, along the lines of, "Oh my terrier's barking at people, and they've just started doing it, and I don't know how to fix it. Can anyone give me any tips?" Is often that it's to do with the way you're handling the dog. Okay, so your dog knows that you're stressed, therefore they're stressed. I think it's one of those kind of myths that hangs around in dog training in general, and I just see it loads and loads in the group. So what I wanted to do today is just talk a little bit about the fact that there is a little bit of truth in it at times, but it is mostly a myth, and what actually is going on. So, firstly, it's not your fault that your dog's become like this, okay? Of course, there are things that we can do that are going to make the situation better, and there are things that we do as owners and handlers that make the situation worse. But the root cause of the problem is not your fault. There's so many things that contribute to why a dog would become reactive, and things that specifically relate to terriers as well. So it might be that the dog has, genetics like that. So we know now from studies that from this thing called epigenetics, where the experiences of even the grandparents will filter down to your dog. So let's say your dog's grandfather had a poor experience where he was attacked by another dog. That experience will then filter down through those epigenetics into your dog. Obviously, it's going to be stronger if it's come from your dog's direct parents and so on. So sometimes you have a dog that is just naturally predisposed to reactive behavior before you even are aware of it. Then, of course, that you have the dog's life experiences. So what has happened to that dog since you've had it? Again, a lot of the things that happen to your dogs aren't, there's nothing you can do about it. It's not your fault if your dog has had a poor experience necessarily. Sometimes, okay, of course, you may have put them in a situation that wasn't great, or a situation may have occurred that wasn't great, but it's rarely your fault. Okay, so that's the first thing to kind of wipe off the table. The other thing that can be going on, you've got to make sure that you've covered before you start blaming yourself for your dog's reactivity, is any kind of health and wellness issues. The common ones with our terriers being things like itch and luxating plethora is another really common one. So you need to make sure you've ticked those boxes. Is my dog fully fit and healthy? Is my dog well? Is there any medical reason why they might be barking at other dogs and so on? Then we look at our dog's life experiences, and then we can look back also at the genetics. And all of these factors, among others, are reasons why we might have ended up with a reactive terrier. Now, so is there any truth in the fact that your fear, for example, transmits down the lead? Now, does it transmit down the lead like some sort of like magic voodoo force? No, of course it doesn't. But is your dog aware of your feelings, your body language, and how you react to a situation? Yes, 100%, absolutely they are. We know that dogs are so powerful in this respect. They can, we can train them to detect cancer. We can train them to detect epileptic fits. We can train them to detect all sorts of things. And they're doing that by reading our body language, by literally smelling the hormones and the chemicals that are going on in our body. So, yes, there is a little bit of truth to the fact that if you are displaying anxious behavior, that if you have a good relationship with your dog, which most of us do, that dog may then pick up on it. However, it's not necessarily, or it's unlikely to have been your fault in the first place that your dog became like this. And something I see with people is definitely that the two become like a bit of a vicious circle. So the dog's having problems, which didn't originate with the owner in the first place, which then that then translates to the owner becoming anxious because they're worried that the dog is going to kick off or cause problems or get into a scrap, and then that then only makes the situation with the dog itself worse because the dog is now like, oh, you're anxious as well, so I was right to be anxious, or whatever. So is it your fault in the first place, and should you be thinking, oh my gosh, the only reason that my dog is barking at other dogs is because I'm transmitting this terrible vibe to my dog down the lead? Absolutely not. There are loads of other reasons why your dog may have become reactive, but is the way that you're handling that reactivity potentially either allowing it to continue or making it worse even? The reality is, yes, that could definitely be a factor. However, because of that, we've got the positive side and the flip side in that how we react can also make things a lot better. Okay, so if you do think that that's a factor in your dog's reactivity, then ultimately, maybe we take a look at ourselves, maybe we look at our handling, maybe we look at our behavior around the dog, and we think, okay, what can I change that's going to give my dog confidence and trust in me, and how can I change my behavior in order to influence my dog's? So while we can look at it like a negative, I think we can also take it as a super positive that our dog is so tuned into us and that our dogs are so aware of how we feel and what's going on with us, and how we can then use that to influence their behavior. Because I tell you now, it's a hell of a lot easier to change your own behavior quickly and sharply on the spot than it is to work on kind of like behavioral modification with the dog, especially a terrier who's super set in their ways. So what you mustn't do is blame yourself. To conclude, it's not your fault that your dog is reactive. You shouldn't go out blaming yourself or holding your head in shame or thinking, oh god, the only reason why my dog has these problems is me, it's because of me. I definitely hear that guilt from people that I work with a lot, owners that come up to me and say, oh god, it's all my fault, and it almost certainly isn't all your fault. There are so many contributing factors to a dog's reactivity that the chances that your behaviour is even the biggest contributing factor is actually quite slim. But then that's not to take away from the fact that it is a contributing factor, but it's definitely more of a contributing factor, I think, to their recovery. So I think you must think of it as a positive thing. The fact that you are able to influence their behaviour with yours is only something that you can now take forward as a positive step in overcoming your dog's reactivity. So I hope we managed to dispel a little myth for you there on whether it is your fault, and next time you read that in a in a Facebook comment, you'll be able to either link people to this little podcast, or at least put that myth to bed a little bit and give the person who's worried some positive thoughts and help on their problem, rather than just the comments that I often see, which is it's all your fault and just be confident and then your dog will be confident, which really it's always more complicated and nuanced than that. If only was that simple, dog trainers wouldn't be needed and you wouldn't be listening to this. So so fab. So hang around for the next episode of Terrier Talk, and thanks for listening.